What up, K-Rugs, the sober dog, and Gemma girl? Today, prison stories number 2, right back to solitary. So, if you missed the last one, I'll put a link up top, a card, check it out. It's all about my first trip to solitary. Now, where I left off was I just did 123 days in solitary, and I got out. Well, I'm just about to get out. So I got out of solitary on roughly November 11th, 2015. And as soon as I got out, they transferred me to a new prison, which is pretty standard in New York State. They transfer you to a new prison. So before I even got to the new spot, I was offered drugs. A guy on the bus with me, there was about 20 of us on the bus to this new jail, said, "Yo, I'm holding when we get there if you guys want something." Now, as soon as I get to the new spot and I'm in general population, I'm allowed to get all of my belongings back that I had before I went to solitary. When you go to solitary, they take all your belongings, your radio, your books, your stamps, your food, your coffee, all that stuff, your t-shirts, and they put it in a bunch of storage bags and throw it in a storage unit while you're in solitary. And when you're in solitary, you're not allowed to get any of that. So I'm going to this new place, I'm going to get all that stuff back that's been sitting in storage for, 4.5 months. That is cash. That's currency in jail. Coffee, food, shorts, even books, porno mags, things like that. Buttman books, those are real expensive. If you don't know what Buttman is, look it up, because those are gold in jail. So I go to this new place, the new jail, which is closer to home. So I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a huge benefit. My family and friends can come see me. It's closer, and it was a pretty, laid back spot, or at least that's what I heard. Within 24 hours of being at the new place, I met 3 people I already knew from the past jail and from the past prison, and they connected me right away with the drug scene. I didn't waste any time. This was back to what I explained in other videos of, this is where the true addiction comes in and where I'm torn. I'm at a new jail and I'm sitting there and I'm finally in a little bit of freedom, where I could walk around, I could go outside and lift weights, I could, walk to the mess hall and eat normal amounts of food. So this is huge. But mentally, I am a disaster from just spending the last 123 days in solitary, trying to kill myself twice in there, losing my mind, talking to the walls, hearing voices, literally going insane. The worst hell on earth that I've ever experienced. I do not want to go back there at all costs. But the other part, I do not want to go back at all costs, but the other side of me is I'm so mentally fried and depressed and miserable from what just happened that the only way I know how to cope and escape that and get rid of a little bit of that depression is to get high. So I'm fighting back and forth. If you get high, you could go back, but I don't know anything other to cope with this than to get high. And I'm fighting with myself, and I give in. Of course, I'm an addict. I don't have positive coping mechanisms in there. I'm going to go back to my addiction. First, it started with just smoking a little bit of weed, and I hate smoking weed. But just to get out of that state of mind, that's that addiction. Then I smoked some K2 Deuce synthetic weed. If you don't know what that is, I'll put a card up. Check it out. I did a video on what K2 is and what the effects are. If you don't know about it, it is extremely dangerous. I've personally seen somebody die in front of me on K2, and I have it in the other videos. So if you want to hear that story, check it out. Hit that subscribe too if you like Soberdogs video. I'd really appreciate it while you're going over to check out the K2 video or anything else. So it started with those two, and then it went to Suboxone, which is a very common drug in prison. People who don't have any tolerance to opioids and take Suboxone will get really high. People who take it as prescribed, it can be very beneficial and helpful. So I start doing Suboxone again at this new jail. Within 2 weeks of being at this new jail, I was pretty much in the drug scene. I knew which gangs had which drugs. I knew where they hung out in the yard. I made friends with pretty much 1 to 2 people in each gang that had the drugs. I found the Rochester guys where I'm from, because Rochester guys always usually helped each other out. So I found those guys. They connected me with the right people. All this stuff within about 2 weeks. And immediately it was like I was back at the first spot, running around, getting high all day and all night, just lifting weights and cooking up pasta and being very cocky and complacent, thinking that, I could just get high and do the rest of my time at this spot close to home, and it's not too violent, a couple fights here and there, but it hasn't been that bad. Nope. All of a sudden, 9:30 one morning, I'm sleeping. Guard comes, grabs me. "Rogeri, get up." "Yeah, drug test." I'm freaking out. I know I'm dirty. I know I'm going to fail. "Can I go to the bathroom?" "No, you got to go to the bathroom right now for us. Come on." Takes me there to do the drug test. I told him I have to, go get ready quick, which meant put clothes on and stuff, because I was in my boxers. So while I'm doing that, I'm trying to chug water, but the time limit, is just not going to work for that, to try to beat this test. So they take me down there. I'm waiting in line with about 15 other guys. And I've said this in the last video, but once you're on the radar, and I was on the radar from failing the first drug test, once you're on the radar, they keep coming back and testing you. There's guys I know that have went 10, 12 years in prison and never got tested once. But as soon as you fail one, you get put in a different category in the computer, and it tests you way more often. So now I'm on their radar, and they're going to keep testing me. So I go down there, I give my test. 2 days later, I am actually in a meeting for the early release committee. At the end of this meeting, the guy says, "Well, I can't even consider you." And I said, "Well, why?" And he said, "You got a tier 3 ticket pending," which is the highest class of tickets. So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It says right here that you failed the drug test." It was in the computer before I even found out. So I left that meeting, went back to my dorm, and sitting on my bed is an envelope. I open it up. "You failed your test. You got a tier 3 ticket. You got to come for your hearing, in 4 days," whatever it was. So now I'm freaking out. I know I'm going right back to solitary. This is my second failed drug test. So the first one, people usually get 30 days, maybe 45. Second failed test, people always get anywhere between like 60 to 120, somewhere in that range, depending on who's doing your hearing. The third one, people are getting, 90 up to, fill in the blank, 360. And it all depends on who's doing your hearing. If you get, if you get one of the cafeteria secretaries, who's just a civilian worker who comes in every day and, fills out paperwork for the cafeteria, she, if him or her, one of them's doing it, maybe they're really nice and lenient and they give you 60. If you get one of the captains of the facility who doesn't play any games, he'll give you 120 for your second, right away. So I go to my hearing, and I ended up getting a nice lady, but she just went by what the book told her to do and gave me 90 more days in solitary. As I was walking back to my dorm, and they're pretty much about to come get me within, a couple hours, that level of depression hit again that was unbelievable. I just left the worst hell on earth, and now I'm going back to this worst hell on earth for 90 more days. And there's nothing I could do to stop it. I cannot describe the hopelessness that feeling has. Oh, you know, I'm a drug addict and I use drugs, and that's how I know how to cope, and that's what happened. Yes, I broke the rules. I should have gotten in trouble, but 90 days in solitary, and I mean, they classified me as a mental health person, which means I took depression medication and saw the psychiatrist. So solitary messes with mental health people. You know, it messes with everybody, but I go back to my dorm. They picked me up to take me into solitary. Before they picked me up, when I had a couple hours, I took whatever I could, packed it into gloves, and packed it up my rectum so that to make the solitary time a little bit easier. I had a little bit of drugs, I had some sleeping pills, I had some tobacco. You know, hopefully it would help make the time a little bit easier. If I could take the sleeping pills and sleep 20 days away, you know, by just keep taking them and taking them and taking them, that's 20 less days, I guess. Now, when you look at the dates, this is the day before Thanksgiving 2015. So I told you in the beginning of the video, November 10th or 11th is when I got out. Thanksgiving, you know, the last Thursday of the month, whatever it was that year, the 27th, 28th, I didn't even make it 20 days at the new jail, and I'm back in solitary, about to get transferred to, you know, a big solitary unit. Not even 20 days. That was the worst feeling. My family just got a little bit excited because I'm at a new jail that's an hour closer than the one I was at the first year. So they're saying, you know, that's a lot nice to drive. Visits are a lot closer. We can come see you. A couple of my buddies came up. You know, an old girl came up. They're all happy because, oh, we only got to drive 40 minutes now to see you instead of the 2.5 hours. Right back in solitary, being transferred, you know, and you don't know where you're going to go. I could go to a solitary unit that's, you know, 7 hours away down near New York City, and I live in Rochester. My family's in Rochester. I could go to a solitary unit up near Clinton in the Adirondacks, 7 hours away through snow and mountains. They send you wherever the hell they want to send you. That was, again, I can't stress this enough, unbelievably depressing. Never have I had that. Besides in the first video, if you watched it, when they added those 90 days on to the 60 I had, this was that same feeling of just pure misery and depression. Unbelievable. I'm going to have the next video coming out in a couple days, and I'm going to tell you all about that second full trip to solitary. That was how I got back there. This next video will tell you all about actually going to solitary the second time and what happened in there, because this one was pretty brutal, this trip. Alright, again, if you like Soberdogs videos, hit that like, that subscribe. You know, everyone's home at work from quarantine and all that, so I'm going to try to get a lot of content out there, hopefully keep people a little bit entertained, but also talk about addiction and how addiction can just, this is addiction, what I'm talking about. I know it's going to send me back to solitary, which is like standing in a pit of fire, but I will keep doing drugs because it's the only thing I knew how to do at the time, the only way to cope. That's addiction to a T. Continuing to do something that's destroying you and everyone around you, but you don't know any other way. It is a disease. It's built in you. Alright, stay tuned for that next video, all about that second trip. Pretty brutal. See ya.